Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Now, I normally don't feature acoustic type guitars on this show. It's mainly all electrics all the time. Sometimes we get a semi-hollow, but that's about as close as we get. But today, I'm gonna break that rule for this absolutely gorgeous arch top. This is a 1950s L5 Custom. I stumbled upon this one on Reverb about 3 days ago and my jaw just dropped. Despite being mainly an electric guitar player, I've always pined after a vintage L5. But there's a bunch of different L5s that you can choose from. You can go all the way back to the 40s where you don't actually get stock pickups with them. They were just meant to be jazz cat guitars. And then you can find some variations when they start putting a pickup within the pickguard. You can even find some with dual Alnico 5 staple P90 pickups. Yeah, did you ever know those things came in a dog-eared variety? But the quintessential L5 look, in my opinion, is just a neck pickup. Something like this Johnny Smith from 1965, the mini humbucker that's just bolted onto the neck. Or the ever so classy humbucker within a humbucker ring. Those are the ones that get me the most excited. So it's not often that I find one like this. No pickups at all that just has such radiant beauty. So let's go ahead and go over this one. Unfortunately, the provided photos are rather small, so I'm gonna have to blow these up so we can even see them. But first off, it looks like we have a fancy trapeze tailpiece. Some trapeze are fancier than others. This one's just more of an elegant beauty. But then we move on here to the bridge. It appears to be made of ebony or something very dark. And then you can see the bridge wheels right here that are gold. But what makes this really pop is the binding on the F-holes. That looks so good with this black top. There's bound to be some sort of finish checking on the top of this if it's really from 1950. And I love the way all black guitars age. You can see that the pickguard also has like a bound layer to it that really helps it pop. So if you really wanted to, you could embed some sort of pickup into that like we saw in other examples. But it's the binding on this one that is just truly special. I mean, from this view, you can see it's got like some sort of white and maybe a black layer. That's pretty cool, right? No, that's not what that is. It's tortoiseshell. That is so fancy. Unfortunately, we don't have any good close-ups, but it does appear it's multi-ply. So it's not just the tortoiseshell, that's just a fancy treat along the edges. So moving on from the top, we can move on to the neck. Most L5s do not have the Super 400 inlays, but it just works on this thing. You get the fancy whatever this thing's called down here. The jazz arch tops are not something that I know a lot about. But you can definitely see where some of like a V Les Paul's elements came from. It had to have come from something like this. You can see once again, multiply. I love the way that the binding runs under the fret, but then at the end it also gets capped off with a fret nib. Antique Natural Spotlight Specials do something like that as well. And that appears to me to be an ebony fretboard. And you probably have some tortoiseshell going along there as well. You can see more of a close-up of that right here. But then moving on to this headstock. You know, I kind of wish it would have had the bigger beveled edge truss rod cover on it, but the Gibson logo, the custom emblem on an L5, this had to have been some sort of a custom order. I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this is just a regular model, but this seems like something for somebody truly special and famous. Because even the headstock is bound on the side with that tortoiseshell, on top of all the other binding layers. And then moving on to the back here, the Kluson Seal Fast tuners. They're so bulky but so fancy at the same time. You gotta love it. And the additional inlay back here that only the super fanciest of the fancies get. It would have been cool if they would have done a stinger in some sort of a color. Traditionally, stingers are black, so I guess they could have went with white, but then you would have a hard time seeing this, so that's probably why they left it off. And the backside of the instrument is just all black. This is a simple, elegant and radiant beauty of a guitar. So how much does it cost? Well, you can follow that link in the description to find it on Reverb for $13,960.64, down 18% from $16,864. Oh, don't forget the shipping cost, $175 because this is in Tokyo, Japan. They always get all the nicest stuff. And it's for sale by TC Gaki. I'm curious, how long? Oh, 2 years. So that tells me that price is rather high. But in my pursuit to hopefully find more information about this, or at least photos that are a little bit bigger than this, I looked it up on their website and it's 1,300,000 yen. That sounds like a crazy price, but even after you add the customs clearance fee that they charge, calculated out, that's about 12,251. So even after PayPal's bad conversion rates, I don't think you'd be paying much worse than 12,750. And that's not just the reverb fee that's built into the price. I find it interesting that they listed it for so much more here. But this is a real gem of a guitar. If I was Guitar George, I would definitely buy something like this because there's nothing quite like a fancy arch top of yesteryear. But I certainly couldn't do justice demoing one of these things, but maybe I'll get into some of these in the future. A long time ago, I actually had a 1948 L7P. And honestly, this is probably the oldest guitar that I've ever owned. The story behind this one is I actually bought a bunch of guitars from a collection. I think of like their stepfather had passed away or something like that, so they were selling many of his instruments. But we had met up at Sweetwater at their little cafe, and this was like the third or fourth guitar I had purchased from them. The other ones were PRSs. And this was one I was really unsure of, but I thought I'd give it a shot because I think I paid like $2,500 for it. But this is the only experience I've ever had with one of those guitars. And I'll be honest, I wasn't like overly impressed with this thing. I just didn't even know what to expect, you know, something that cost as much as it does and is as old as it is, but it does not have pickups. So it's all just within the acoustic tonalities of the guitar. And this thing had a couple of surface cracks. I think it had maybe even some slight neck issues if I remember correctly. I remember right after I bought it, I took it to a Sweetwater guy who just happened to be there. He was looking at it. He was a guitar tech. He's like, oh, you shouldn't have bought this one. It's either that or I'm remembering this story wrong and he was just pulling my leg. Because I don't remember anything being like too physically wrong with this thing. Unfortunately, there's no playing demo of this one, but let's go ahead and listen to a different L5. The only question left, would you rock this L5 custom order potentially or not? Leave your answer in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.